What we're here to do is to address concerns that teachers have got about high-stakes testing, which we think is now pretty universally shown to be damaging to children. So we think that your affiliation with high-stakes testing is actually damaging to your brand. These tests the kids are doing in the States, they're not for them, are they? They're not high, they don't get a qualification from them. They are simple accountability measures which are driving teaching to the test. We're concerned about the Key Stage 2 SATs here, which we don't think are good tests, which drive teaching to the test in schools here.
Okay. Well,
and you've got the contract for them as well, and we'd like you to start reflecting the genuine criticism that teachers and research evidence has about those tests.
That's why we meet with organisations like yourself quarterly. If that's a specific issue or concern, what I suggest is, Rod Bristol will be here a little later. Rod will be happily to meet. I'll follow up.
Parents of children who are going to do well on the SATs say, my child is incredibly bored by the huge amounts of revision, the test preparation, and children who aren't going to do well on the SATs, they say their children are really stressed by it. We've got
my kids' education, it just really turned them off.
Children in secondary schools who report to their Year 7 tutor, so I'm only a level 3, and you know the damage to their psyche, and it's not. Children learn at different rates. The EduData Lab, this big, huge data set, children don't learn in these sorts of ways.
I agree completely.
The thought that some of that money that should be educating everyone goes in to setting up private education that's going to either make it much difficult to educate everyone, and also that ends up in shareholders' pockets is deeply distressing.
So what we're saying to shareholders is, look, listen to teachers, understand that teachers have got real concerns about the over-testing, the over-accountability, and just talk to us and, look at education for the whole child and not just the outcome and, children as metrics. That's what teachers are really concerned about. So we hope today that all of the shareholders will get an opportunity to read the letter, to respond to people that have written the letter, and then we can hopefully have a bit of a dialogue.
I'll read it. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you.
It's clear that Pearson are concerned and working out their responses, and they're a sophisticated organisation. When we hear them, though, they say that they're very concerned about the social impact of the work they do. It's one of the things they said today, which we think is somewhat ironic and unusual. They say they are imbued with respect for teachers. So this is something, and they say that they are in favour of free state education worldwide.
And today, what we heard from the Pearson board and from the Pearson chair and from the Pearson president, people who, by the way, were very pleased to announce that there was a 235% increase in profits over the last 10 years, and that there was a 35% increase in the share price this year. They were very pleased to announce that what they really are focused on is that they should be measured by social impact. But you see this notion of a corporate profit need overcoming the public's interests and parent and students' interests in high quality public education and teachers' interests in delivering that.
I think one of the most scandalous aspects of what Pearson is doing is the fact that they are using public money, British aid money, in order to set up the private provisions of schools around the world. So I asked John Fallon, the CEO of Pearson, in the room just now, don't you see a contradiction between your stated long-term goal that you want to see universally accessible education free to all students provided by the public sector? It's just such a system that allows me to be here and allowed him to be in that room where he was today. That's his long-term stated goal. Don't you see a problem with the fact that you are taking public funds that should be directed towards that kind of education and using it to set up private provision of schools? Well, the answer he gave me was that no, he didn't see a contradiction towards those two things, but I think that most people do. And I think most people are scandalised that the part of British public spending, the part of the British state that we should be as proud of as our comprehensive school system, as proud of as our National Health Service, which is our aid budget, which should be used precisely to create the kind of welfare state that lifted people out of poverty in this country, should be used for exactly that same thing overseas, not to provide private schools that compete with public sectors and undermine public sectors. Low-cost schools often aren't low-cost to people who have very little money in the slums and shanty towns where they particularly thrive. They often rely on classroom scripts, on extremely large classes, on poorly prepared and very badly paid teachers. So there's a problem with the model, of course, because that's how you generate profit at the end of the day.
If education is run for profit, money which should be spent on the education provision has to be diverted to shareholders. And that the poor profit capitalists, entrepreneurs, can't get round that. And the only way that the for-profit companies can make a profit, and actually the profits for Pearson's and others are now under threat. They're under threat because of the contestation of testing in the USA, and also actually it's quite difficult to make a lot of money out of providing schools and things like that because staff costs take up so much. So they're looking to get ever more rapacious in where they're going to go, and which is why I think they've moved into the global south in the way they have, because they're seeing increased resistance in the global north against what they're doing.
A parent who defended her child's school when the government forcibly turned it into an academy, gave it to an academy chain which has not done a good job with that school. She asked a fantastic question inside just now, I think rocked the chair and got a very interesting set of responses. So thank you, Sarah, and please do.
The question I asked was after the private provider took over my children's school and installed their regime of 6 weekly testing, which had a hugely detrimental effect on my youngest son, who actually performed worse every 6 weeks and got moved down a table every 6 weeks in both maths and literacy, to the point that we had to take him out of the school. And I asked the question, this stress and strain, that's on a primary school child in this country now, that's what's happening. Now, and we read 2 days ago that in Shanghai, a high school in Shanghai, the students there that are sitting the equivalent of A-levels, their pre-university tests, the suicide rate is so high they've had to install bars and grills in the school to stop the students jumping off the roofs and the balconies. And I think in a few years' time, if the globalisation of the education market continues with these high-stakes tests, which nobody can argue are in the to benefit children, in the entire board meeting there, I didn't hear one defence of the tests as that they were going to benefit children. And if we continue in this way, we're going to end up with these suicide grills in our schools. And that isn't something I don't think anybody in this room would like to see. And as long as Pearson continue with the business model as they are, I think that is what's going to happen. We're going to get these systems in our country unless we really fight hard.
Where we are now in New Jersey and in the States is we're in a situation where testing, high-stakes testing, has now become the centerpiece of American education. Pearson sits at that center as the provider of the tests in the large majority of our states, and American parents in New Jersey, are not happy at all about this. You've made a reference to the spying that's been revealed, and Randy made a reference to the spying that's been revealed that's been going on in the states, and particularly in New Jersey. It came to light in New Jersey. And we have now been told, parents in New Jersey have been told, that we cannot discuss the tests that our children take with our children when they come home from school. So I would like to say to Pearson that I do not appreciate having a large corporation stand between me and my child. That is an absolute right of the parent to be informed about the child's education. If I were the chairman of Pearson, what I would want to know is that the brand is not doing very well in the United States, right? Parents are rejecting the Pearson brand. They don't trust the tests. They don't want to take the tests. Parents have gone to every level of government, and we have said this testing regime is not working for us. All education revolves around it, and we don't want it. But the wheels of government have been very slow to move. And so what we're doing now in the United States is that parents are refusing the tests. In some states, we call this opting out. In New Jersey, we call it refusing the test. In the town where I live, in Montclair, New Jersey, 42% of the children just refuse to take the Pearson test.
They're an international company, yes. They are an international company.
Take yourselves from the jam!